Hey guys, and thank you for joining me this evening as I play one of my favourite video games of all time, Slay the Spire. This is a roguelike deck building card game that I discovered not long after its release, as it was recommended to me by Steam of all places. And the first day that I got it, I basically ended up ruining my plans for the weekend because I spent 6 to 8 hours just playing this instead of traveling and doing some stuff that I needed to do. And since then it has been a very important game to me, one close to my heart. I've sunk a couple of 100 hours into it on both PC and the Switch, and I thought today I'd start doing a little tutorial or just a general gameplay sort of walkthrough. So if you're already familiar with this game, you might not get a whole lot of new information out of this video, but I hope you enjoy anyway. So as we can see up here, my profile has 233 hours on it. I believe Steam has it up to about 280, so I think I've either idled or save scummed a bit, but we're at 94% completion. What I might do today is start an empty slot and we'll do a run of the first character as it would be if you just bought the game today. And in future videos we can do some harder Ascensions and challenges runs like that. So today we'll name our second file Evergreen. And you'll notice immediately that we're at 0% and a few of our options have gone missing. So I'm going to try my best to explain the various items and decision making that goes into playing Slay the Spire as we play. But there is sort of a lot to learn and a lot to master. So there are 4 characters in Slay the Spire by default, and they're all locked until you do a run of the first character, which is the Ironclad. The Ironclad has 80 HP by default, max HP, starts with 99 gold, and starts with a relic called Burning Blood, which gives us the ability to heal 6 health at the end of combat. Each character has their own starting statistics. I'm pretty sure everyone starts with the same health and the same gold. It's just that your starting deck and your starting relic are slightly different for each character. Next you'll see we have 5 unlocks remaining, with 0 out of 300 to next unlock. The unlocks are actually batches of relics and cards that you are able to run into while playing to add to your deck or your inventory. So the first few runs until you get 300 points or 300 score, it is. The first few runs have a limited amount of cards and relics. So the points of the first few runs are to try and get as much score as you can to unlock all the new goodies. But we're going to embark. So we're in Act 1, and there are 3 acts in a default run. As you can see up here, this is a boss fight, and the image displayed here actually tells us which boss we're going to fight at the end of the act, so you can start preparing your deck. This is actually the Guardian boss, and he's super annoying to fight. but you'll see that when we get to it. Otherwise, this is the map screen. After every fight or encounter, you return here to make your next choice. So our first choice is where we want to start. And basically, in Act 1, we want to trade our health for as many cards and upgrades as we can get. These icons here are fights, just regular hallway fights. This icon is an event. It can be good, it can be bad, or it can be just a hallway fight. It can also be a shop, which are also these tiles here. This is a campfire where we can rest to get our health back, or upgrade a card, and in later runs, depending on what relics we have, we can do other things as well to boost our stats. The chest icons indicate treasure, so we basically get a free relic by visiting these icons here. And lastly, this indicates an elite combat. An elite is a much stronger enemy with predictable patterns, from which we get a relic reward. Next we have our deck, and this is our starting deck as Ironclad. We have 5 regular strikes, 4 defends, and a bash. Each card costs a specific amount of energy, indicated by the number in the top left of the card. And by default we start off with 3 energy. We can play whatever cards we want in order to spend that energy, but we cannot go below 0, obviously. Strikes just deal damage, and defends block damage, with any excess damage actually subtracting from our health. So we want to try and block as much of that as you can, depending on what kind of build you're going for. Our bash card is unique in that it deals damage and applies to vulnerable, which is a status effect that causes enemies hit by it to take 50% more damage from attacks, and each card has a little tooltip when you hover over it, which is super helpful. So with that said, let's decide where we want to go first. Now, a shop this close to the start is pretty bad, because we only have 99 gold, which means we actually can't afford much. Especially if we went fight, event, shop, we'd have pretty much about the same amount of gold. So we're actually going to ignore the shop and look for a route with a majority fights, maybe 1 or 2 events, but what we're looking for is a few campfires and maybe an elite fight. Which looks like if I go this route here, we've got 1 campfire, 1 elite, 2 campfires, treasure, event, 3 campfires, event, and 3 fights. Sort of don't necessarily want these 3 events, so I'm actually going to go this way. Thank you. And there's just something I want to turn on first as well, if it's not already on. Okay, fast mode actually makes turns go much faster. And I want to also do this, I think. Alright, so in each fight we have our energy here. We have our draw pile, which we do not see in order, but it shows us what cards we have left to draw. And we have our discard pile, which is currently empty. You can also see that we can see what each enemy intends to do when I end my turn. So this acid slime will attack me for 3 damage, and this spark slime will actually debuff me, which I believe will be a weak or maybe a frail. Weak and frail actually stop you doing as much damage or blocking for as much, and it's pretty annoying. So we actually have enough damage to kill this acid slime, And this isn't going to do any damage to us, so we don't need to block anything. So we just end our turn. So again, we're not going to take any damage, so we don't need to defend. And we actually did get frail, so now instead of 5 block, we only get 3 block. But luckily for us, we don't have to block anything. So, although 3 strikes here would do 18 damage to Spike Slime, and Bash and Strike doesn't actually do as much. Actually, it might be... no, it'll be 1 less. It'll actually set up Spike Slime to get knocked out next turn by applying Vulnerable. So now Spike Slime is vulnerable and will receive 50% more damage from attacks for 2 turns. Which means that even though this says it'll deal 6 damage when we hover it over the enemy, it'll say 9. So now we end our turn, and then unless we get 4 defends here, we'll be able to kill it easy. So even though we didn't take any damage, our relic lets us heal 6 HP at the end of combat, and that's a very good relic for Ironclad, because a lot of his cards are about spending HP to do pretty strong effects, and it allows you to be a little more aggressive with Ironclad. Just need to turn tutorials off. How do I do that? Or can I not? I guess I can't. So our loot at the end of the fight is 19 gold and a card. Okay, so we have Warcry, which allows us to draw 1 card and put a card from your hand onto the top of your draw pile. So that allows you to set up various things. And if we right click on a card, we can actually view its upgrade, which we do at campfires. And the upgrade will be highlighted in green. Sometimes it'll make it cost less, sometimes it'll give it a different ability, sometimes it'll just boost what it's already doing. So drawing 2 is pretty good. Card draw is pretty important in Slay the Spire. Unfortunately, we kind of want more attacks than defends or skills. Act 1, the trick is to sort of get a lot more front-loaded damage to get yourself through some of the fights, especially some of the elites, which if you have nothing but defends, they will slowly whittle you down. And there's one elite fight in particular which will punish you for taking too many skills. That said, I do like armaments, which says gain 5 block and upgrade a card in your hand for the rest of combat, which is pretty good. But then if you use upgraded armaments, it upgrades your entire hand for the rest of combat, which is also pretty good. However, I think I'm going to take Shrug It Off, which gives me 8 block and allows me to draw 1 card, and when we upgrade it, it gives me 11 block, which is a lot of block for 1 energy. But we don't want to take too many skills. And next we're going to head to this event. Alright, you find a shimmering mass of light encompassing the centre of the room. Its warm glow and enchanting patterns invite you in. We can upgrade 2 random cards, but we lose 16 HP, which is a very good deal considering we're at full health and we heal 6 HP at the end of combat anyway. So we're going to take this. So we get 2 defends upgraded, which isn't ideal, but it's better than having 2 regular defends. So we're going to head on to our next fight. So the cultist buffs itself on the first turn with a buff called Ritual, which basically means that every turn thereafter it's going to get 2 additional strength, I believe. So we want to kill this as fast as we can, which means hitting it with a bash, and then a strike, and then ending turn. Now, if we take 6 damage this turn, and he goes down to what, 7 health. We're pretty much guaranteed to kill it next turn, assuming we don't get defend, shrug it off, defend, defend, defend. But if we do get that, we can block all the damage coming in anyway. I was actually going to get 3 extra strength, so it'll go up to 9 damage next turn. Or we can defend, defend. Actually, no, we can't. We can defend, take 1 damage, but then have to. Yeah, no, taking the 1 damage is ideal in every turn. I pretty much am guaranteed to not lose this fight. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay, we just kill it next turn, so we just block all this damage again. And bash strike. So we are currently playing on what is called Ascension 0. When you beat a run, you eventually unlock the ability to play an Ascension run, which basically is an ever-increasing challenge run with different modifiers on, and the higher up in Ascension you go, the more modifiers are active. So I've been playing at Ascension 12 and 13 for the last few hours of my gameplay. So going back to Ascension 0, where it's essentially very easy, it's actually tricking my brain a little bit because I don't have to think quite so hard about things. Anyway, our next card reward is a choice between Clothesline, which is a 2 energy attack that does 12 damage and applies 2 weak. A 0 energy attack called Clash, which deals 14 damage but can only be played if every card in your hand is an attack. And Battle Trance, which is a skill that costs 0 energy, allows to draw 3 or 4 cards upgraded, but disallows any further draws that turn. As I said, card draw is good because it lets you play whatever you like. 14 damage for 0 energy is pretty good, except it's very unlikely that it's going to be the only attack in our hand unless we get a particular deck set up. And Clothesline I do actually like, because it's the same energy as 2 strikes, except it also gives them a weak debuff, which saves us a bit of health. So I'm going to take a Clothesline here. Gonna head up to this fight and fight the Jawworm, which is going to hit us for 11 damage, so we're going to block what we can and hit it with a vulnerable, and hopefully it buffs itself this turn. No, it doesn't, but we do have Shrug It Off, which will completely block all of that damage. And now we can do Clothesline, which will be the same damage as 2 strikes, but it also, as I said, decreases its attack power. So in this case, we're going to defend and Clothesline again, I believe. And you'll notice that the less damage we take, the better Burning Blood is, since it'll get us back to high HP. And if we have high HP, then we can upgrade our cards instead of resting at campfires. So we're going to take our gold, and here we have our first potion. You'll see we've got 3 potion slots up here, and this particular potion says heal for 20% of your max HP, which is pretty good. Thank you. Some potions do damage, some do debuffs, some buff you, and some just heal your HP. So we obviously don't need this now, but it'll be good to hold on to this for later. And next we're going to pick our attack card, or our card reward. again clashes out, but we have Anger, which is a 0 cost attack which deals 6 damage or 8 upgraded, and adds a copy of this card into your discard pile. Which sounds pretty good to be drawing a lot of 0 cost attacks because it means you can play more attacks during your turn. However, eventually, every time you play it, it'll add a copy of itself to your deck, and then eventually you're just going to be drawing low damage attack cards with no block, and you're not going to be able to use your energy. So it's a pretty niche pick, I'd say. Twin Strike is pretty nice, however. Just does 5 damage twice to an enemy. Upgraded damage is 7. This doesn't seem like much now, but it's actually helpful for some of the later fights in the ROM, and it also scales pretty nicely with strength boosting, which is one of Ironclad's sort of gimmicks, is boosting your strength. So for every strength you have, your attacks deal 1 extra damage. So say you get 3 strength, which is not unheard of. All of a sudden this card will do 5 or 10 damage twice, and it goes from a 10 damage card to a potentially 20 damage card for 1 energy. I think I will take this. It's a little better than a strike. Okay, so here we have a looter. He's going to attack us for 10, and every time he attacks us, he's going to steal 15 of our gold. If we manage to defeat him, we get all the gold back. Otherwise, he runs away, and we're just poor. So we're going to shrug it off to block most of that damage. Then we're going to we could bash to apply vulnerable, but I think just going aggro here will actually be more helpful in the long run. Okay, so now we can defend and clothesline. And now we can twin strike, strike, strike. There we go, see, we're nearly back to full HP. We get our stolen gold back, we get some extra gold on top of that, a new potion, which is Essence of Steel, which gives us 4 plated armor. And plated armor is pretty neat in that at the end of each turn, we'll gain the amount of armor that is left in our plates. So we start off with 4, so at the end of our turn we'll gain 4 armor for free. And basically that number will go down, the amount of plates will go down every time you take unblocked attack damage. So the first time I take unblocked attack damage, it'll go down to 3, so then I'll only get 3 armor at the end of each turn. And we'll pick a card. So we've been offered our first power cards, which you play once and you get the benefits of that power for the rest of that combat. So here we have Dark Embrace, which is 2 cost. For whenever a card is exhausted, draw 1 card. Exhaustion is basically playing a card from your deck and then removing it for the rest of that fight. It sort of disappears, if you will, unless you have specific cards to bring it back. And Exhaustion is actually another one of Ironclad's gimmicks. But we don't have any cards that exhaust, so this is not a good pick for us right now. Clash is still garbage. Metallicize, however, is not bad. Metallicize is a 1 cost power, which will give us 3 block at the end of our turn for free. And if we upgrade it, we get 4. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it adds up. I will actually take this Metallicize. And we hit our first campfire. So our choices are Rest, to heal 30% of our max HP, which is 24, or we can Smith to permanently upgrade a card in our deck. Healing at 73 HP is useless. And let's have a look. We don't bother upgrading any of the strikes or the defends really. So that leaves us with Bash, Shrug It Off, Clothesline, Twin Strike and Metallicize. I think it's actually going to be between Bash and Metallicize. I think upgrading Bash here helps us the most. It deals 10 damage instead of 8 and applies 3 vulnerable, which means an extra 50% damage versus everyone for 2 turns after Bash instead of 3. Alright, so this fight's a little annoying. And we get sort of hit with our first choices, our first like really important choice. We can block 10, and we'd have to take the rest. Or we can kill one of these and then block 5. We block 10, we can actually block 13, 5, 10, 13, and then take 8. And then Metallicize helps us block a lot. Let's see. So let's say we block 13, 5, 10, 13, we take 8. I can kill one of these to take, and then block for 5. To take, 11. Or I can clothesline. I think I'm gonna do this. We have tons of HP. These guys aren't really doing heaps. And we'll heal most of it back anyway. So unfortunately we can't kill both of these, but we can block it. So we're just going to kill this one, and then block that damage. And we're going to get debuffed by these 2 acid slimes here. So we've gotten 2 turns of weak now, which means we're going to do 25% less damage for 2 turns, which it's not that big of a deal. So we're going to take 11 damage here unless we block. And I don't actually want to draw any other cards here, so I'm just going to okay, so I forgot I had Metallicize, so the play there would have been to Shrug It Off and then Strike to block all the damage. That's fine. And that's just kind of the interesting thing, like you can easily forget about your powers and your relics and all that business. So we can kill this guy and then block. But the outcome's pretty much going to be the same anyway. Okay, we can kill this guy and then block for free. And then win. So we really only have to take damage that first turn. Okay. So here we have Burning Pact, which is a uncommon skill. The different cards have rarities. Grey border means it's actually, yes, it's common. So grey border is common, blue is uncommon, and then yellow is rare. We have Armaments again. Burning Pact says we can exhaust 1 card and draw 2 cards, or exhaust 1 card and draw 3 cards. exhausting one of your cards sounds bad until you realize that really you don't need a strike when you've got Twin Strike, Bash, Clothesline. So exhausting bad cards to get to your good cards is a good thing. We also have this attack card called Perfected Strike, which deals 6 damage and additional 2 or 3, I think, for each card you have that contains strike, which includes our default 5 strikes and twin strikes. So if I took this card now, it would be a 2-cost card, dealing 6 plus 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So it'd be a 2-cost 18 card. Sorry, 2-cost 18 damage card, or 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, a 2-cost 21 damage card, which is pretty good. However, we do want to eventually start removing some of our weaker attacks, which will power down Perfected Strike. So I think, and like we don't have that much energy, so I don't want to take too many cards that cost 2 at the moment. So I'm actually going to skip. And skipping cards is a very important thing to learn how and when to do. It might seem like you're making your deck stronger each time you take a card, but the more cards you take, the less consistency it has to get your good cards out. So skipping cards is sometimes beneficial, even though the game just tried to force us into taking it. Alright, where are we going next? We're going to go up to this event. This is a pretty useless event. A note for yourself. You spot a loose brick within a pillar that catches your eye. You find a folded note and a card inside. It reads, "The heart awaits. This is your handwriting." So this event is actually a little interesting. We can take a card that was stored there and store a card for future runs, and whatever card we stored in it will turn up in future runs, and it could be different characters that we're playing as, which means we can get a card normally unique to this character on another character's run. An Iron Wave is pretty good. We get 5 block and we deal 5 damage. So I'm actually going to store a strike, I believe. Which, you know, giving myself a strike in the future doesn't seem that good, but you can kind of use this as free card removal, which is also very important. It's on the same level as skipping cards. If there's nothing beneficial to add to your deck, you skip a card, and then if you get the option, you can remove cards, which lets you get your better cards out more consistently. So we're going to take this treasure. We get a free relic, and all these relics stack. We get the oddly smooth stone, which says we start each combat with 1 dexterity. And dexterity is a statistic that improves the block gained from cards. So if we have 1 dexterity, which we will after we take the smooth stone, now we get 1 extra block anytime we get block from block cards. It doesn't affect metallicize, unfortunately, but now instead of 8 block from defend, we'll get 9. Instead of 5, we'll get 6. Instead of 8, we'll get 9, etc. So that's a pretty good one. We're going to head up here to our next upgrade, and we're probably going to upgrade thinking Shrug It Off for a little bit extra block. And our next upgrade, depending on what cards we get in these fights, will probably go to metallicize. Okay, so we have Acid Slime Large, and this fella, once we get him to 50% HP or lower, is going to split in half into two smaller slimes, and those slimes will have whatever his current HP is when he splits. So we want to get that as low as we can before he splits, so we are not fighting two chunky boys. This is going to attack us for 11, so I'm feeling a shrug it off, and I would like Metallicize up, however I think it's better just to set up some big damage on old mate slime here. 16 is a lot of damage to take, so we're actually going to block it all and then hit him with a regular strike. And now Clothesline and Iron Wave. That's a pretty decent split. So now when I end my turn, Acid Slime Large is going to split into two small Acid Slimes with 23 HP each, and they all lose their debuffs. And you might also notice we have this status card in our deck now. Acid Slime actually added this to our deck, and it basically just stops you drawing cards that you want in return for a status card that doesn't really do much. You'll notice this one has a cost, so we can actually play the slimed status card to exhaust it, which removes it from our deck, but we don't really need to worry about that right now. So I'm going to take 20 damage here if we're not careful, but we can actually block it all and Metallicize, so this will be a good turn to set up our Metallicize. And now we have a good turn to attack. So we just miss out on a kill on this slime. So I might actually do this just to set up them both to be a little weaker. Okay, so we're going to take 17 damage this turn. We need to make 14 block. And I don't want to play Shrug It Off because I don't want to get my good cards this turn when I'm trying to block most of this damage. So we're just going to defend, and strike. And I feel I probably should have maybe concentrated on killing one at a time instead of setting them both up to die, but it doesn't really matter because now we just win. So I'm going to take out gold, see what cards we can get. Alright, so we're going to see a lot of the same cards popping up because we don't have many unlocked on our first run. I actually don't want any of these, so I'm going to skip them. And we're going to fight our first elite, and hopefully it's the one that I want. It is not. So this is an elite, it's Lagavulin. It's going to sleep for 3 turns, and while it sleeps it gets an automatic 8 block every turn until we wake it up. We could wake it up this turn, but we instead want to wait for a good turn where we can set up maybe Metallicize and Bash. So we're actually just going to end our turn. He won't wake up until we deal damage to his health or 3 turns have passed. So this is sort of not ideal. We ideally would have got Metallicize and Bash on separate turns, because I do want Metallicize up. But I also want Lagavulin to be vulnerable, because this dude actually hits like a truck when he wakes up. But I think, hang on. I think we actually don't bash it this turn. And instead we clothesline Twin Strike next turn. I think that's the play. Because I don't get enough block next turn. And I don't really do that much damage, but if we do this... So he doesn't do anything during my turn, but next turn he's going to try and attack us. I think that was the correct play. Oh, he actually doesn't hit for that much. I'm used to playing higher Ascensions. So we can block for 12, and now we want to start just throwing into his face, because in 2 turns he's actually going to hit us with a pretty nasty status effect, which causes us to do a lot less damage and take a lot more. So clothesline, Twin Strike. So we actually lost a dexterity and a strength, which means we're going to be doing 1 less damage and making 1 less block, which will just be back to our normal block since we had 1 extra dexterity from our relic. However, shrug it off and strike. Strike is still the good play here. Let's see. Bash, Iron Wave, Bash Twin Strike might kill. Let's see. 9 damage goes down to 11. Yes, it does. Okay, it wasn't too scary. He's a lot scarier on harder Ascensions. So as you can see, we actually get a relic for fighting elites, so you want to try and take on as many elites as you can without killing yourself. And you get a lot more gold as well. Extra blood potion is nice. And we get the Bag of Preparation, which says, at the start of each combat, draw 2 additional cards, which is pretty nice. Honestly, it lets us set up our good cards earlier. Okay. Infernal Blade is a skill that says, add a random attack into your hand, it costs 0 this turn. Which can be pretty good because there are very high cost attacks that do a lot of damage, and if you get that and it costs 0, then that's really good. And if we upgrade Infernal Blade, it itself becomes 0 cost, so we basically get to play 2 cards for 0 cost. I still don't really want a lot of card draw because I don't have that many cards that I'm trying to get through at the moment, so we might take Infernal Blade. We might regret that later because it doesn't actually help our deck out right now. But we'll see what we get. Alright, Searing Blow is actually pretty good, and this turn it's going to cost 0. Which means we can actually kill one of these with Bash, Searing Blow. So we have the Fungi Beast, which is this rat being taken over by a mushroom. When we actually kill these guys, we get debuffed with the vulnerable status effect, which means we'll take more damage. So what we can do is we can kill one right now, but we might not be able to kill that next turn. We've got a pretty good chance of blocking for 9, so I think we just kill one. Actually, he'll be buffed, so it's going to be more like 12 damage. That's fine. Yeah, easy. We can shrug it off, clothesline. We'll block it all. And Searing Blow. So you'll notice Searing Blow cost its regular 2 energy that turn because I'd already used its 0 cost ability. We can't take more than 3 potions, however we can use a blood potion here to heal, and then take another blood potion. Alright, so now we have Intimidate, which applies 1 week to all enemies, and then exhausts itself, so we can only play this once. For 0 cost. It's not awful, but it's not kind of what I'm looking for right now. We have another Perfected Strike, which still isn't that useful. And hang on, 6 plus 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, so yeah, 16. Yeah, it's not that good. And we have Impervious, which gives us 30 block and exhausts. This is a rare card. It's not particularly helpful to us right now, but you can get some things that combo with it. I might actually take this and hope that we bump into some of those combo cards. I can't remember what's locked and what's not locked. Okie dokie. We sort of want to kill Jawworm first, since it'll start buffing itself. So I believe we go Bash, Iron Wave, and take 5 damage. Now we metallicize. Defend. We don't want to draw our cards right now since we can't use much else. And now we can. It doesn't quite kill. We can Twin Strike, defend, strike. And now we just go into a Spiked Slimer's face. So we get Sword Boomerang from our Infernal Blade, which says deal 3 damage to a random enemy 3 times. So it sounds like it's going to deal 3 damage to the same enemy 3 times, but it can actually be any enemy 3 times. Oh, there it is there. Okay, so we have another Twin Strike. We have our own copy of Sword Boomerang, which can be good, but we have a lot of low damage cards at the moment, so I don't actually want to take that. And we have a power called Fire Breathing. Whenever you draw a status or curse card, it deals 6 damage to all enemies. So this sounds kind of bad because you need to have status or curse cards in your deck. Curse cards are pretty bad. Status cards are pretty bad. Curse cards are really bad. However, there are some cards that will put pretty harmless status cards into your deck, which will be basically 12 damage to every enemy you have whenever you draw a status card. So it's not that bad. However, we don't have any of those cards, so we can't take this because it'll just be a bad card for us. So I'm going to skip. And we come to our final campfire for the act. We're at full health, so we don't need to rest, so we're going to Smith, and we're going to Smith Metallicize, so we can get a free 4 block each turn. So this is our first boss fight. It's the Guardian. The Guardian has 240 health, and he is going to block this turn. After we do 30 damage to him, he's going to transform into a different form, upon which, if we inflict damage, we will actually take damage from his pointy thorns. And we kind of don't want to do that. We get turn 1 Metallicize, which is pretty nice, because it means we're set up for the rest of the fight. It means I don't have to play it in the middle of the fight. So I'm going to play that, and we're not going to be able to make him transform next turn instead of attacking us, I don't think. So, we could if we just Twin Strike and strike. I was thinking about a clothesline, but we might just try and make him transform instead. So now we have to do 23 damage, which depending on what this card is. Pummel Strike's pretty nice, cool. Pummel Strike will be 10, sorry, Bash will be 10. And this goes up to, I believe this goes up to 13. So we're going to be 1 damage short, which is a bit sad. But actually that might be good because it means we can... Oh no, we're going to be exactly on. So normally we'd get hit for 32, but if we deal enough damage to make him transform, it actually makes him transform on the spot and we don't take his attack. So now he has 3, they're called thorns, but it says sharp hide. If we deal damage to him in this form, we're going to take damage ourselves. We don't really want to do that, so we're going to defend. And we can actually get an attack in here, because since we have 9 block, it'll take 3 damage from the thorns when we attack him. Then we get 4 back from Metallicize at the end of our turn, and we can block that whole 9, so we can actually afford an extra cheeky attack here. Now we can shrug it off. Iron Wave. And Twin Strike sounds good for the damage, except it'll attack twice. Which means we'll take 6 damage from Thorns, so we go down to 9 block, plus 4 is 13, so we'll actually take a bit of damage there. So we can just strike and still have enough block to block all the incoming damage. I'm going to clothesline to weaken him, so now instead of 20 damage we're going to take 12, and then we can just defend. Then we can bash and twin strike. If I shrug it off, we can draw a card which will make us reshuffle since we have nothing in our draw pile. So we could get a more beneficial attack than 2 strikes, but I think it's better just to do 2 strikes. If I kind of want to defend and maybe bash, but if I do that, we take 3, go down to 3, 4. We'll take a bit of damage there. We don't really want to attack it next turn, so I'm actually going to Iron Wave and Pommel Strike. And now we just shrug it off. Defend, let's say 16, minus 6, 12, 16, yeah, so we can twin strike here. Actually, I think I might have calculated that wrong. Alright, so now it starts getting a bit scary because we have to deal ever increasing amounts of damage to him to get him to transform. So we're actually going to start using our HP as a resource and taking more damage and blocking less. So I'm going to intentionally deal under the 12 damage here to take 24 damage, because it means we actually get to attack him while he's still vulnerable this turn, and we get we had the potential to get more damage off if this wasn't a block. Just shrug it off, clothesline. And we're going to take 12 here, so I'm just going to... Okay. So I was wrong, it's only when I play an attack and not when he receives attack damage. So even though Twin Strike attacks twice, I only take damage from the Thorns once since I'm only playing one card. Which is not how I thought that worked. And we're going to heal to full at the end of the act, so I'm just going to keep going in to speed this up a little bit. And we defeat our first boss. We get 99 gold, which is, this is a lot of gold. And we get to add a card to our deck. So we can run with Double Tap, or Fiend Fire, or Juggernaut. Double Tap is a skill that lets us play our next attack twice. And if we upgrade it, we actually get to play our next 2 attacks twice, and it doesn't cost us energy the second time an attack is played. Fiend Fire exhausts our hand, which basically means anything else that's in my hand gets sent to the exhaust pile and I don't get to play that card again to that combat. But it will deal 7 or 10 damage for each card exhausted. So if you manage to get a big hand using all those draw cards that we've been skipping on, then you can deal 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 damage for one card. You just have to be able to win the fight quickly so you don't miss all those cards you exhaust. And Juggernaut, which is a power that says whenever we gain block, deal 5 damage to a random enemy. Juggernaut will go well without Metallicize. It'll be 5 free damage each turn if we have Metallicize up, however, we will need to play 2 powers. I like all of these, honestly. Juggernaut's probably my least favourite though. Double Tap's honestly usually pretty good. Double Tap Bash, Double Tap Clothesline, Double Tap Iron Wave, Double Tap Twin Strike. Whoops. I think we need a lot more damage though, so I'm considering Fiend Fire. And to go with Fiend Fire, we would probably start to pick up some more of those draw cards. I'm going to go Fiend Fire. So now we get to open a boss chest and choose a new relic. We have Black Blood, which replaces our Burning Blood, which says, at the end of combat, heal 12 HP, which is pretty good. Sacred Bark doubles the effectiveness of potions, so we would heal for 40% of our HP, or we would get 8 plated armor, which is also pretty good. I usually don't pick this though. And we have the Astrolabe, not really sure how to say that, which says, upon pickup, transform 3 cards, then upgrade them. So we get to pick 3 of our cards to transform them into other random cards and then get 3 upgrades on them. Which, 1, 2, 3, 4. If we picked that, I'd probably pick 2 strikes and a defend. I think I might do that, actually. Healing 12 HP at the end of each combat's pretty nice, but our biggest problem right now is we don't have very good cards. So I'm actually going to do this. 2 strikes and a defend. So now we can see what we got. We got Hemokinesis Plus, which says lose 2 HP, deal 20 damage. Not my favourite, but it does a lot of damage for 1 energy. And if you can take 2 damage to kill something instead of taking 18 damage and not killing something, then that's a good trade. Especially if you can heal it at the end of a combat. We also got Shockwave Plus, which says apply 5 weak and vulnerable to all enemies, which is honestly pretty nice. And then exhaust, so we only get to play that once as well, but 5 turns of weak and vulnerable enemies is pretty good. And we got a clothesline plus. So we kind of don't want 2 clotheslines. So if we're going to remove something, I'd probably get rid of this next. Because we didn't get an energy relic. Normally there's a relic in the boss chest that gives us an extra energy in exchange for some sort of downside. We didn't get that, so we're going to be stuck on 3 energy for our next act, which looks like this. So all of these are the same. Well, I mean they're different paths, but all the icons are the same. Just new enemies in this act and a new boss. But we have been playing for about an hour. I don't fancy doing 3 hours for each video, so I might call it there. Once we get past sort of this run, which will be in 2 or 3 parts depending on how far I get, hopefully you guys will have a better understanding of the basics of this game, so I can start doing maybe 1 run per video, which would be like an hour to an hour and a half, and we won't have to break up a single run over multiple videos like I will for just this first couple of episodes. But I'd like to thank you for joining me today for our introductory episode of my favourite game, possibly of all time, and I hope to see you in the next episode.